This is Extra Points, a Pop Warner podcast. I'm your host, Tim Glaze. We're sharing some of the most compelling stories in sports. On this episode, we chat with one of the best safeties in NFL history, a Super Bowl winner with the Bucs, and the current GM of the 49ers. Here's Hall of Famer, John Lynch. John, thanks so much for joining us. As I've looked at your career and your story, there's one story that actually comes to mind, and I'm really find it really compelling, and it goes back to your college days and something a coach did to you to kind of, I guess from our standpoint at Pop Warner, we always hope that we can see things in kids that kids cannot yet see in themselves. And you have a Bill Walsh story that kind of speaks to that a little bit. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I do. So, I was recruited by Denny Green, really Jack Elway first, and then Jack was, parted ways with Stanford, and then Denny Green came in, and Denny Green recruited me to Stanford along with Mark Marquez, who was their baseball coach. I played both sports at Stanford, and but we had some pretty good success, and Denny Green really turned around a struggling program. And his last year, we were 8-4 and beat some good teams, and that earned Denny an opportunity to coach the Minnesota Vikings. And so we're thinking, okay, who's going to be our coach? It's going to be tough to top Dennis Green, who had done such a great job restoring the pride in Stanford football. And out of nowhere, they say, "Hey, Bill Walsh, who had kind of retired from the Niners, um, that was the most fun he had ever." He said Stanford was his bliss. That's where he had more fun coaching football than ever before. And um, I think a certain alum was in a conversation with Bill right at the point where they were making a decision on their head coach, and I think it was, "Bill, would you ever think about it?" And next thing you know, Coach Walsh took the job. I was off playing minor league baseball after my junior year. I had signed with the Florida Marlins, and I was playing in Erie, Pennsylvania. And one day, I played in Erie that first year. The second year, I get a call from Bill, and Bill says, "Hey, I'm watching our film from last year, and I understand you have a great opportunity with the Marlins. But John, I'm telling you, you were our best defensive player." And I said, "Gosh, coach, with all due respect, I was a quarterback my first 2 years, became a safety my junior year, played about half the snaps that year." I said, "With all due respect, coach, you're telling me I was your best player. Um, I got benched, and I played a lot." But he goes, "Well, I can't speak for those other coaches, but I watched, and you were our best defensive player. And furthermore, I believe you can be a Pro Bowl safety in the National Football League. And I'd love to, have that opportunity to coach you and all that." So, my mindset was really on playing baseball. I felt like I gave football my best shot. So Coach Walsh just said, "Hey, the next time you're in the area, could you stop by?" And I stopped by, his office, and and I said it in my Hall of Fame speech in true Bill Walsh fashion. He didn't just tell me; he showed me, and he made a tape, and it was me making a play, tackling a running back, and then Ronnie Lott doing the same thing, and then Ronnie Lott making a play, sacking a quarterback, and me doing the same thing, and me making a play on the ball and Ronnie Lott. And I left there so excited. I called the Marlins. They weren't very happy, but I said, "Hey, I'm going back to play my senior year at Stanford." And I did, and my career kind of took off. So without Coach Walsh having that belief, who knows if I would have made it in baseball. But yeah, I was forever indebted to Coach Walsh and still am to this day.
It's interesting. You mentioned something of him telling you you're going to be an all-pro. I didn't know that, but I did know another story. And I believe Herm Edwards told you that when you were with the Buccaneers that one day you'll be a captain. And it may have taken you by surprise. But like, what does it mean to have a coach be able to speak into your life like that, or see something that you can't yet see yourself? And
Yeah,
does it encourage you to actually make that, or is it like,
yeah.
how does it impact you?
It means the world. I reference my Hall of Fame speech a couple times, and that's not to brag that, hey, I got to the Hall of Fame. I think what making it to the Hall of Fame is, you have to reflect on what got you there. And what I found myself reflecting on, because as athletes, you're always worried and focused on what's next. And so you don't spend a whole lot of time looking back. But when you make the Hall of Fame and you're charged with doing a speech thanking everyone, you really focus on, how did I get here? And you think of your parents and your spouse, and but then you think of a lot of people like coaches, like Herm Edwards, like Bill Walsh, like Denny Green. that believed in me before I believed in myself. And I think that was Herm Edwards and Tony Dungy. They got to Tampa, and I kind of was a backup player looking for my spot. And they said the same thing Bill Walsh did. You can be an all pro, you can be a Hall of Famer, but we can't believe it. You got to believe it. And so that belief, belief isn't always something that's innate, and is certain guys it is who have had tremendous success. But I watch it out here every day with the Niners on our fields. Kids struggle with confidence. Not everybody is just the guy who gets better every day. And great coaching, great belief, authentic belief and coaching as to here's how you get and chase your dreams and achieve your dreams. That's so necessary. And if you don't make it in football, here's the great thing for Pop Warner coaches all around: you're making them better in life because you're teaching them to think big and then take the necessary steps in terms of preparing yourself to give yourself the best chance to make it. And so it's a win-win. And I think back to my Pop Warner coaches often, and even those guys, played an integral role in my development.
Yeah, you played for Torrey Pines, is that correct?
Yeah, it was my high school, and our Pop Warner team was called Torrey Pines Falcons as well, and nothing but fond memories of those days.
Did you grow up playing multiple sports as a
I
kid?
did. Yeah, my parents were big. They kind of subscribed. My dad played football. My mom was a really good athlete, and they just subscribed to the theory with their three kids. I was the middle child. You keep them so busy they couldn't possibly get in any trouble, and so we did everything. I mean, I played soccer, I played basketball, I played baseball, football. You just kept going. Tennis, golf. You just kind of did everything, and that's how we were raised. And I loved every second of it. It was great time with our family too. I mean, my dad, I think, he left football to other people, maybe because he played football, but he was always my baseball coach, and he was always there and always in the booster programs, and taking the team out to lunch or dinner after the games. And they're really some of the fondest memories of my childhood.
We have a lot. We debate here a lot on sports specialization, particularly because tackle is not a big program in the spring for us. And we see opinions run the gamut in terms of specialize as early as you can, play as many sports as you can. Are you, in today's landscape, are you still an advocate of playing as many sports as you can?
I'm
Yeah.
definitely in that school of thought. I just think it more that diversity of different sports, different movements, different patterns that you're reading. Like playing point guard in basketball is very similar to playing quarterback in football, and the line of sight, the peripheral vision. And I just think it develops you holistically. The other thing, it's fun, and sports should be fun for kids. And I think when we get specialized, you get so focused. I see it a lot in baseball. Baseball grabs these kids and they say, hey, it's a very skilled sport. We need to have you year round. And what's happened in baseball, I think they've got a big hole in the athleticism of the players. And because they aren't developing their athletic skills, they're training their hand-eye and all that. So I just think there's nothing but positive things. And probably most positive is the excitement of going from one sport to the next, to the next, to the next. And that keeps it fresh. It keeps it fun. And again, I think back to my childhood, and that was one of my favorite things. Now, I understand as a parent the pressures when your kids get good at things, people want them to specialize. And I think you have to have the fortitude to say, hey, that's all right, coach, if that's what you're asking for is 100% commitment, but my kid's going to play multiple sports. And if that doesn't work on your team, I understand that. And so I think you have to have for your child the fortitude. And then there probably does come an age where, hey, if you're maybe it's two sports. That's what I had to do in high school, or I didn't have to do. I decided to do was, baseball took a lot of time and football took a lot of time. Basketball probably wasn't going to work. I played my freshman year, and after that, focused on the two sports. So that was specializing for me. Again, I am a big advocate of playing multiple sports.
I've seen a lot of numbers over the years in terms of NFL players. The majority of NFL players at least several years ago, played multiple sports coming up. Now with the focus on specialization, maybe that was a shift there. With your 49ers team, do you have a lot of guys? Is it predominantly guys that played multiple sports?
We do, and it's something we look at throughout the draft process, and we like it. We like the fact that kids, this kid was a soccer player growing up, and his hand-eye is very deft um, as a result of that. I think we see it as a positive. So it is something that we see a lot on our teams. In our locker room, we keep a basketball hoop, and it's so the guys have some fun, they have some competition, but it's so interesting to watch all these guys who can really play basketball at a high level. I mean, they get some hellacious horse games and all that, and have a good time doing so.
One thing about the game itself, football, it's Pop Warner, we're kind of at the forefront. We're trying to be at the forefront, at least on the youth level, with different safety standards and different techniques and ways we play the game. I know one of the things that you're most known for, or very well known for, is just the uh, maybe the aggressive defensive play of that time, and trying to have it in balance, that intensity and also control with the
Yeah.
new way of doing football. What have you seen in the evolution of the game during your time and up until like where's it going from a standpoint of just the physicality of the game?
Yeah, I think in a real positive direction. You're never going to take the physicality out of football, and I don't think you want to. It's a physical sport. It's hard. It's not, and because of that, it's not for everyone. But it can be played safely. It can be, the proper techniques. It's so critical. I really believe, and I think a lot of them are, but the best coaching, the best resources should be poured into the youth because when they learn it young how to do it correctly, it stays with them. And so, we see it at our level. Certain people just have an understanding for how to play, and frankly, like a lot of people go, "Gosh, I seen your tape." Well, that was legal then. It was a different game, and the league. The NFL, I think, has taken great leadership. I'm on the competition committee now, and we spend a lot of our time. How do we keep our players safe? And it always comes down to technique and rules and enforcement of rules. And you hope that it never gets to the enforcement of rules or fines because guys are playing the right way. And I don't think anyone wants to take the physicality because that's why people tune in, why they watch, why they play. But there's a way to play both physical and safely. And that doesn't mean nobody's going to get hurt. When you're playing a game as physical as football, that comes along with it. But there is a way to make it safe as possible. And what I love is people in football are hitting it from every possible angle. The techniques, the rules, the equipment has gotten so much safer. These helmets now that they're making, these shoulder pads they're making, everything because they're putting a lot of resources into making the game as safe as possible. And it's a wonderful game that pulls, I think, just grows so much character that, learning it at the level of Pop Warner is just so critical. And that's why I just pray and hope that, and I'm so appreciative when people take the time because I know the time. I talk about my dad, the commitment. He was running a big company, but he was always showing up to coach our little league games. And the guys that were my coach, Bob Powell and Rick Whitney, I'll never forget them. They had jobs and they'd come in their suits, they'd roll up their sleeves. But the impact they had on those kids, it's just so critical to their life. Forget about football, to their life.
Hey all, so just when you thought your fall season could be over, you can get the team together for an exciting new flag football tournament. For the first time, Pop Warner is partnering with NFL Flag to host a national flag football event. The Crown Classic will take place in Charlotte, North Carolina this December 12th and 13th, with divisions across many age groups, both co-ed and girls. Registration opens September 2nd. For more information, check out popwarner.com. Now back to the episode. I know you were a star with the Buccaneers. I interviewed a teammate of yours not too long ago, Derek Brooks, and I really appreciated some of the things he had said, just speaking about the team unit. Um, I just want to give you a chance to talk about that Bucs team and your career in terms of the leadership in the locker room and how do you lead a locker room of teammates, and what was your philosophy on that?
Well, um, I think the greatest definition I've ever heard of leadership, came from a general who I met actually in Tampa, Tommy Franks, and Tommy, led Central Command, and they were doing a lot in the Middle East at the time. And General Franks said, "Do you make people around you better?" That's what leaders do. They make everyone around them better. And so, on that Tampa team, we had guys like Derek Brooks that were Hall of Fame players, like Warren Sapp that were Hall of Fame players, Rondé Barber that was a Hall of Fame player. But all these guys, more than anything, they were great teammates, and they made their teammates, their organization, their communities better because of the things they did. Um, we have a bond from that team because I think we all came up. There was some interesting dynamics to that team. Number one, I got there in '93. I think I was first of all those guys to get there. I was first, and we were terrible. we were the Yucks. It was not good. We were on Johnny Carson. He was the Tonight Show at the time, and we would be in his monologue for uh, our futility. We were a bad football team and a bad organization, and so to turn it around made us even more prideful. And the leadership it took saying, "Hey guys, we're young, but we have to take over this team because what they've been doing hasn't been working, and it's incumbent upon us to come together." Now, all those players were great players. They were also tremendous leaders, and it was most manifested by the way they went to work every day. It wasn't by their words. It was more by their actions. And all of us, we went to work. We pushed each other to be the best. We pushed our teammates, and we supported our teammates when people were having a rough day. You picked them up, and when they needed a kick in the tail, we gave them a kick in the tail. And it was just really fun playing football with those guys, and some of the greatest memories of my lifetime.
Yeah, it's interesting from a standpoint of culture. Now you're in a position with the 49ers. Are you able to try to instill some of the culture you experienced in that era with the
Yeah,
team today?
absolutely. We just had a draft and we're playing a bunch of rookies. And I think back to the time that I was with the Bucs, and you have an opportunity to become a great unit, a great defense for years and years when you just give it to the young guys and you say, and that's not just the young guys. We also have Fred Warner and Bosa and Diamador Lenore, guys who have been around for a while. But when you can have a group of young guys grow up together, there's a bond that's really unique and special. And so, yeah, a lot of the lessons I learned with that team are the ones we're uh, installing here with our group.
Yeah, and I know it's interesting. One thing I find interesting is your relationship with Ryan Shanahan. Obviously, you played under his dad in Denver, and just like how do you guys work together to bring that culture and to bring that team out on the field every Sunday?
Yeah. Well, Kyle and I did play for his dad, but really didn't know Kyle that well. But we both came from similar backgrounds in that I obviously played in Tampa for a long time with the Bucs. Kyle started his professional coaching career in Tampa. And so he was around Monty Kiffin and that defensive group, the same people. So we had very similar philosophies. I played for his dad, very similar philosophies. And Kyle and I see the game in very similar light. Now, that's not to say we agree on everything, but I think we set out to do this thing together. And, one thing I had learned as a player, but probably more so as a broadcaster, when you go in and you see the great franchises, they have management and coaching working together. It's too hard not to have that when you have forces working against each other. It's hard to do. So we've tried to work together. I think Kyle and we genuinely enjoy each other. We challenge each other. We don't agree on everything, but it's our job to sell the other guy. If I love a player and Kyle's not quite on board, Kyle, this is why I love this player. And then Kyle starts to like him, or he says, I can't get there. And then we move on, and vice versa. But I think that relationship that we have where we work together to find consensus is permeated throughout our organization, and it creates a culture. We like having fun. This is a hard game, but it should be fun. And I think that's represented each and every day out here on the practice field. And it's a fun place to go to work. We've had a lot of success. We haven't had the ultimate success yet, but we're going to continue to strive until we get Lombardi #6 for this organization.
Good. One thing I know a big a big story out of San Francisco past for a few years has been Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant. I don't know if you and Kyle argue about who decided to take him off the draft board, but I think it's an interesting story, particularly for kids to learn that, like, you know what, success can come from anywhere to a certain degree. At the same time, I think there's that struggle to be noticed, and to also a struggle to be able to notice somebody, a diamond in the rough, that like Brock Purdy. So, how would what is there a lesson in Brock Purdy's rise and in his story for kids?
Yeah, with Brock, I think there's so many lessons. First of all, the perseverance. I mean, Brock was under recruited out of high school. He was in Arizona, and his recruitment came very late. I think Brock is an extremely loyal person, and Matt Campbell at Iowa State was the guy that showed the most interest from the jump with him, and that stayed with Brock. And I think as the story goes, Saban in Alabama came in late, but he's saying, all right, I get Nick Saban and what a program and what an opportunity. But this guy over at Iowa State has been recruiting me the longest. And I identified with that because I had very similar recruitment stories. Stanford recruited me early, and as a result, I was loyal to them. But then, Brock plays 4 years and really changes the program at Iowa State. And I think what Kyle and I give each other a harder time about than whose decision it was what the heck took so long. We drafted him as the last player in the draft that year. I think a lot of people are saying that. But Brock, I think what is so impressive, there's an old saying, because when Brock came to us, he was our fourth quarterback on the depth chart. And there's an old saying in football, during training camp, during off-season practices, don't count your reps, make your reps count. And so that means whenever you get an opportunity, go show exactly who you are. And that's a tough thing to do. Like in Brock's position as the fourth quarterback, he sometimes was getting 3 or 4 reps in a given practice where you have 100 or so reps throughout the day. But what we always saw was when Brock had 4 reps or 5 reps or 6 reps, he made every one of those count. And everyone, all of a sudden, and he wasn't just safe, he was testing his limits when he would get those opportunities. And everybody starts looking when he makes a throw. I'd look at Kyle, Kyle'd look at me, players are looking, and you do enough of that, well, let's give him more opportunities. And so I think the great lesson is Brock has never let other people put barriers on how high he wanted to go and his dreams. He's just said, all right, they don't believe in me now, but I'm going to continue to put in the work. I'm going to continue to believe in myself. And that's exactly what he's done. And now, he's been rewarded as such. He's our franchise quarterback. He's an incredible young man who has a strong faith, has a strong family. He's now a father. That's new to him. But he's just, there's so many great things about Brock Purdy's story that should be celebrated, and we certainly do here with the Niners.
Yeah, I really always appreciated the story, and I do follow. I'm a Brock Purdy fan, so hopefully he can come back strong this year and have some success for you. But I also want to ask you a question. I'm a little selfish about this question. I had started my career in media, and I really enjoyed the aspect of kind of looking over the industry from a 30,000 foot view. So one of the things that I always read about you and said about you is you're a student of the game. You have a high football IQ, and you went from playing the game to the broadcast booth, which give you a different perspective. Then you came back to be a GM, and I'm just curious about just how being a lifelong learner has, and I'm assuming you're a lifelong learner for doing this, has helped you in each step of those ways and actually been part of that trajectory.
Yeah.
What you learned in the broadcast booth, I would think benefits you as a GM in ways that you couldn't step right from the field into the front
Yeah,
office.
there's no doubt. We're all a product of our experiences, and my experiences are vast. I think of Kyle all the time. His dad being who he is, Mike Shanahan. He grew up around it. You learn something just by osmosis, by being around it enough. That's what you talk about at the dinner table. Um, similar thing with my dad. Like my dad was a 11th round pick of the Pittsburgh Steelers in 1969 and only played like a year with the Steelers, but he loved football and our family loved football. So we talked it. I was talking to him, telling I was doing this, and I said, "Dad, what were your recollections?" And we lived in San Diego. We were Chargers fans. We were San Diego State Aztecs fans. And he said, I remember taking you to games, and while all the other kids, the young kids, were running around, you were so intently watching the game. You watched every play. And so I think my mind always went to trying to understand football. And even when I was playing, I was on this search to try to understand the game and to give myself every advantage, but I really just actually enjoyed it. And when I played, I would always talk to the GMs and I'd say, hey, tell me about your job. What do you do? Tell me about scouting. How do you scout? And so, yeah, it all led to another, I think, of broadcasting. Um, because when you're a player, I was a safety. I played for the Bucs. I played for the Broncos, and I had a cup of coffee with the Patriots in year 16. So I knew how those organizations did things, but being a broadcaster really gives you a more global outlook on football, on the league. I would go to Seattle and I talked to the GM, John Schneider. I talked to the head coach, Pete Carroll. Russell Wilson was the quarterback at the time. We talked to them, Richard Sherman. You have these production meetings and you get a really good pulse for what makes the good organization. What are the commonalities in the good organizations? And then when you're cutting your teeth and starting, I was doing a lot of, back then it was a lot of Detroit Lions and Rams games. And you get a good pulse for like, okay, why are these guys not successful? And so I think it gave me a different perspective and things I learned that helped me as a general manager, that were invaluable. But we're all a product of our experiences. And it is a lifelong journey that started before Pop Warner, playing Pop Warner. And, the thing I love about this game is I used to have a coach, Monty Kiffin, God bless him, because Kiff passed a couple of years ago. But one thing he used to say, the most dangerous words in football is, I got it. As soon as you think you have it, the game's passing you by. You have to be on a lifelong journey for constantly evolving, constantly getting better. One of my old coaches used to say, you never stay the same. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. So we choose to get better. And that's what I choose. And I love doing it.
I'm sure you've had a lot of opportunities to speak directly to the 49ers team, but as we
Yeah.
close this interview, I'm going to ask you to just put yourself in front of a group of 12-year-old Pop Warner players. What would be your message to them?
My message would be, you get to play the greatest game there is in my mind. I love every sport. I love all sports. But I think the greatest thing about football is that the team aspect of it, and say you're on defense, it takes all 11. It really does. And you're only as strong as that weakest link. And so, the nature of the game, that you can be great. 10 guys can be great. That one guy breaks down. So what do? You have to lift that person and you have to take accountability and say, hey, that was on me. I'll be better next time. I love the fact that football brings people together from different backgrounds, from different parts of the country, and it brings fans together. And you see people hugging that don't even know each other. I love the friendships, the lifelong friendships I've made with the Derek Brookses, the Warren Sapps, all the teammates that I had a chance. I love everything about the game. So take advantage of it. Is it hard? Absolutely, it's hard, but that's what makes it so good, and so great and so invaluable in terms of instilling character into young men and women. And I'd say soak it up. I'd say to the people that are coaching it, don't ever take for granted the impact that you're having on these young men and women. Like, pour into them, and know that people like me are grateful for the work that you're doing with these young kids, because it's going to stick with them for a lifetime.
Perfect. Thank you. I really appreciate the time today and good luck to
Okay.
the 49ers this
Okay.
year.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
For Pop Warner, I'm your host, Tim Glaze. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. This podcast is a production of Pop Warner Little Scholars, the premier national governing body for youth football and cheer and dance. Visit us at popwarner.com.